Okay, let's dive into this idea of counterculture. Now, the sources you shared, they're centered around stewardship, but they immediately make us rethink what that word counterculture even means. It's definitely culturally loaded.
It really is. I think most people jump to extremes, right? Total separation, maybe like the Amish or, the classic 1960s image piece, love, rejecting materialism.
Yeah, exactly. Or even thinking about Jesus as like the ultimate rebel flipping tables in the temple, confronting the powers that be. That definitely looks like pushing back.
It does, but the sources draw a really crucial distinction. The core idea here isn't total rejection of culture. It's more about transformation from within.
So less about storming the castle walls and more about changing things from the inside out.
Precisely. The material frames Jesus not as rejecting the world, but as discerning it. Seeing the world less like a battlefield to fight and reject and more like a mission field to embrace and serve.
I like that framing. It shifts the focus. So countercultural living becomes about looking at the world around us, figuring out what aligns with, say, a higher purpose.
And then working to transform what doesn't align. It's an internal process first, which then shapes external actions. It's really about that inside-out transformation.
Okay, let's dig into that.
Yeah.
To understand what needs transforming, we have to look at the original pattern of this world Paul talked about, Romans 12, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do not conform, but be transformed. What did that pattern actually look like in first century Rome?
Right. Context is key here. First century Roman culture was heavily built on status, on debt, and very transactional relationships. Your worth, your success. It wasn't just about skill.
It was about who you knew.
Pretty much entirely. It was based on favor trading. Success depended on cultivating powerful sponsors, patrons, and showing them absolute unwavering loyalty. You owed them.
There wasn't much room for mercy in that system.
Not really. The culture rewarded payback. Keeping score, the rule of reciprocity that was crucial for survival, for climbing the ladder. Mercy could actually be seen as a weakness, disrupting the expected exchange.
And then there were the bigger civic pressures, too.
Oh, absolutely. Allegiance to Caesar was non-negotiable. Calling Caesar Lord wasn't just, a polite suggestion.
It was politically charged.
Deeply. Refusing to do so wasn't just disagreeing. It was seen as treasonous by your neighbors, potentially dangerous. And this tied into religion, too.
How so? The public sacrifices.
Exactly. Those weren't just personal piety. They were seen as a civic duty, essential for securing the favor of the gods, ensuring collective luck and safety for the city or the empire.
So if you were an early Christian and you refused to participate,
you weren't just being unreligious in their eyes. You were seen as unpatriotic, even dangerous. You were potentially putting everyone at risk by opting out of this cosmic insurance policy.
Okay, so that's the context for Paul saying, do not conform. He's telling them to resist this whole ingrained system of status, debt, transactional loyalty, and pagan civic duty.
Yes. And instead of conforming, he tells them to offer their bodies as living sacrifices. It's a radical call to nonconformity, rooted in a transformed mind and heart, playing out in very real, very risky public ways.
It makes you wonder, though, how different are things really today? Okay, we don't have Caesar worship, but the underlying patterns.
That's the bridge we need to cross. The sources argue the underlying human tendencies are timeless. Pride, greed, fear, status anxiety, this sort of pervasive self-centeredness.
So what are the modern equivalents of conforming to the pattern of this world?
Well, think about it. Instead of literal sacrifices to Roman gods, maybe today it's the loyalty rights that demand our complete allegiance, our finances, perhaps, our political tribes, even the brands we identify with,
The pressure to keep up, to protect our status or security.
Exactly. Focusing on protecting what we have, climbing the ladder, maintaining our image, often at the expense of maybe serving those who can't offer anything back in return. That rule of reciprocity is still incredibly strong, always keeping score.
Which brings us to that internal battle, doesn't it? How easily we default back to that scorekeeping, even when we've experienced something. Whoa, grace-filled.
Absolutely. The sources use this really powerful story, the car accident on Route 80. You need to picture this. Driving along and suddenly a huge wooden plank crashes right through the windshield, glass everywhere.
Terrifying.
But the driver is completely unharmed, miraculously okay.
And the first reaction, according to the source?
Just pure, overwhelming gratitude. It's just a windshield. I'm okay. Relief. Focus totally on the grace of being spared.
Okay, I can imagine that initial shock and relief.
But then, watch what happens next, the mental drift. Almost immediately, the mind starts replaying it, the what-ifs.
If only.
Yeah. If I hadn't gone back for my jacket, trying to make sense of it, control it somehow, and then really quickly that gratitude shifts.
To what?
To anxiety. Entitlement, almost. Oh, I just got this car 2 weeks ago. My insurance premium is going to go up. I can't believe this happened to me.
Oh, wow. That's uncomfortably familiar.
Yeah.
It's so easy for the inconvenience, the cost, the hassle.
To completely eclipse the grace, the fact that they were spared serious harm just vanishes behind the broken windshield and the insurance paperwork.
That shift from gratitude to grumbling, it happens fast.
It really does. And the sources pinpoint this as the essence of the pattern of this world. It's this default mental setting. We receive abundance, maybe even a miracle, and almost instantly our focus snaps back to what's broken, what's missing, what we're owed. We slide from abundance thinking into scarcity thinking.
It sounds exactly like that parable Jesus told the unforgiving servant.
It's a perfect parallel. The guy's forgiven this absolutely enormous unpayable debt, an act of just extravagant grace and freedom.
He's let off the hook completely.
Totally. And what's the very next thing he does? He goes out, finds someone who owes him a tiny amount, grabs him by the throat, and demands full repayment. Now, no mercy.
He couldn't internalize the grace he'd received. He defaulted straight back to the old rule.
Exactly. He clung to the worldly pattern, scorekeeping, demanding what's fair, what's owed. He couldn't let the grace transform his own identity or actions.
And the source makes this striking observation, that in our current climate, simply being consistently graceful or generous or merciful, that itself is becoming countercultural.
It really suggests that the default mode, the cultural current, is pulling strongly towards that scorekeeping, self-protective, grumbling mindset. So choosing otherwise takes deliberate, conscious effort.
Okay, so if this transformation is internal, this renewing of the mind, how does it show up? How does it become tangible? This seems to lead directly into stewardship.
Yes, stewardship is presented as the practical application, but it's framed not just as managing stuff, but as something deeper.
An identity issue, the sources say.
Exactly. The core idea is that everything we have, time, energy, money, attention, skills, it's not ultimately ours to just hoard or consume. It's held in trust.
And how we use or deploy those resources says something fundamental about who we are and what we truly value.
Precisely. The sources quote Clayton Christensen's book, How Will You Measure Your Life? And it's a powerful quote, something like, with every moment of your time, every decision about how you spend your energy and your money, you are making a statement about what really matters to you.
Wow. That puts everyday choices in a different light. So my calendar, my bank statement, they're not just practical tools, they're like identity statements.
That's the argument. They reveal the pattern you're actually living by. Are they reflecting that worldly pattern of fear, scarcity, securing your own future first? Or do they reflect a transformed pattern, one shaped by an understanding of grace?
So what do those transformed countercultural choices look like in practice? The sources gave some concrete examples, didn't they?
They did. One example is deliberately choosing contentment and gratitude instead of getting sucked into that endless cycle of comparison, always needing the next thing, keeping up with the Joneses.
That takes real intention.
It does. Another example mentioned was declining a job, even one with a significantly higher income, because it would pull you away from family or community or what you feel is your deeper calling. That directly confronts the idea that more money is always the right choice.
That definitely goes against the grain. What else?
Practicing Sabbath rest, intentionally stopping, not producing, not consuming, just resting, connecting with God, with loved ones, that pushes back against the 247 productivity demand.
And giving, right? Sacrificial giving.
Yes, specifically giving a meaningful portion of your income away, especially to causes or people who can't repay you even, or maybe especially, when the economy feels unstable, and the logical thing seems to be to hold on tighter.
Okay, so you can really see the two distinct patterns emerging in how resources are handled.
Absolutely. The world's pattern says, fundamentally, I need to secure my future first, get mine, protect myself. Then, maybe if there's surplus, I'll think about being generous. It starts from a place of perceived scarcity and self-protection.
And the other pattern.
The transformed pattern starts from a different place entirely. It says, I have received extravagant grace, more than I deserve. That changes everything. And because of that grace, I share what I have, trusting that the source of the grace is sufficient. It operates out of abundance, even if circumstantially things look tight.
It really underscores that this isn't a one-and-done decision, is it? It's a daily, maybe even moment-by-moment choice.
Exactly. A daily surrender, the sources suggest.
Yeah.
Choosing again and again, am I going to conform to fear and self-protection? Or am I going to lean into renewal, trust the grace I've received, and let that shape my actions, let it overflow?
It's about constantly redirecting that mental drift, isn't it? Away from the grumbling and back towards gratitude, towards generosity.
That constant renewing of the mind that Paul talked about, it's active.
So if we pull it all together, this deep dive suggests countercultural living isn't about building a bunker and leaving the world.
Not at all. It's about engaging with the world, but doing so differently. It's about loving and serving like Jesus in the world.
Choosing gratitude when the default is grumbling. Choosing grace and mercy when the pattern is scorekeeping. Choosing generosity when the instinct is fear and hoarding.
And the challenge the sources leave us with is quite practical. Start small. What's one choice you can make today that pushes against that transactional pattern?
Like naming 3 things you're grateful for before you voice a complaint.
Exactly. That simple act starts rewiring your focus away from scarcity. Or, the other suggestion, intentionally bless someone. Do something kind for someone who absolutely cannot pay you back. Break that cycle of reciprocity.
Okay, so since the world pattern is so deeply ingrained in scorekeeping and securing our own interests, let's leave you, our listener, with something to think about this week.
A provocative thought, perhaps.
Yes. If you were to look honestly at, say, your calendar for the next week, or your last significant financial choice, or even just the last time you chose not to do something helpful, what pattern does it reveal?
And maybe even more pointedly, what one small, maybe even seemingly illogical act of generosity could you choose this week? Something that deliberately breaks your typical pattern of holding on, of securing, and instead reflects that pattern of receiving grace and letting it overflow.
Because ultimately, as the sources remind us, our choices are actions. They really do reveal who we are becoming.
What statement are you making?
Worth considering. We hope this deep dive gave you some food for thought on what it truly means to live counterculturally today.